I am so exhausted because this is the 4th take I'm doing this, and I keep messing it up. So hopefully this is the last take. I hope so. Okay. This episode is going to be about my complete timeline of Thomas the Tank Engine, friends. I'll explain more. So, as I said, this is a complete timeline of the Thomas the Tank Engine. What do you mean? And you might think, oh yeah, the complete timeline, like the model series and the TV series together. No, not really. Ground rules, I have mixed the TV series and the railway series together to make one cohesive timeline, or semi-cohesive timeline. And to make it work, I had to change some stuff. Second, some of this is headcanon. If it is, I will tell you. Third, I have not finished reading The Island of Sodor, its people, history, and railways, so anything from that about the Middle Ages will not be mentioned here. I will make an updated video after I've finished reading it. And Tatmar is not canon. Let's go. Before the 1800s. In 1070, King Godred ruled over Sodor. He was a good king, and he had a crown. It was stolen. The thieves were eventually caught. Crown was never found. This gives a newfound respect for the Bren era, because it really just took the iOS book and just chucked some stuff out of there and made a movie about it. It's King of the Railway, the first made King of the Railway out of that, and then they made Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure about it. I will talk more about when we get there. Captain Callus was a pirate who attacked merchant ships, but when he was tracked by the Navy and the merchants, he hid his ship in a cavern and buried his treasure. He made a map to find his treasure for later. He lost the map. That was in 1700. The 1800s. The first steam engine is invented. 1806 is where a line was built from Balladwale to Wardfell, which transported stone in wagons by horses. Wardfell is where the wharf is, and Balladwale is like around like where the Skarloey station is. 1829, Stephen is built and the Rainhill Trials occurs. 1835, the Sodor and Mainland 1, Neil, Sodor Mainland 3 are built. A standard gauge line from Balladhoo to Rolf's Castle is built. And 4 trains are ordered. Sodor and Mainland 1, Neil, Sodor and Mainland 3, and Hiro. Hiro arrives first. This was my first episode that I made. My episodes are basically going through this entire timeline from start to finish. This is my template for the season, so if you want to know which episode comes next, you just watch this video. 1963, a standard gauge, narrow gauge, so the standard gauge line gets extended to Kirkronan, and the old horse line gets ripped up. A new line gets built around Lake Skarloey, a narrow gauge line, goes to Crowens Gate, and is run by Mr. Mac, aka the Thing Controller. 1864. 2 engines are ordered and built. Whitehaven, England. Skarloey and Rene's Tallyland and Dolgoch are also built for. 1865. Crosspatch and Bunking Brucko happens. Crosspatch has already happened. I already did a video on that, and Bunking Brucko will be the next episode. But it will be delayed because I did something really stupid, which I don't want to get into now. So that will probably come out in 3 weeks, but don't think for 3 weeks I'm not going to make any content. Other content is going to come out. In 1867, Stick in the Mud happens. In 1870, a second standard gauge line is built from Wellsworth to Sudbury. It is run by a fleet of 040 saddle tank engines that work there. 1875. Sir Handel Brown, the future owner of the Skarloey Railway, is born. 1880. A second narrow gauge line is built from Aldersborough to the west side of Peel Godred, the Mid-Sodor Railway. The first two engines built are Duke, after the chairman and Duke of Sodor, and Bertram. And Sir Topham Hatt, the first, is born. Okay, so Bertram, that's my headcanon. I'm putting this, well, if you mix the model series with the railway series, it's kind of like obvious where Bertram would fit into, and I think he's here. 1881. Robert Sam is born. We'll find out who he is later. 1885. A third standard gauge line that went from Ellsbridge to Knapford was built, and it was run by a fleet of coffee pot engines. Sir Topham Hatt I's father built one of them. Glynn is one of them. 1899. A third narrow gauge rack rail line is built on Codyfell Mountain, the largest mountain on Sodor. 5 engines were built and brought from Switzerland: Godred, Ernest, Wilfred, Coldy, and Shane Duini. 1900s. 1900s, the Coldefell Mountain Railway opens and Mr. Walter Richard is the controller. Mountain engines and bad lookout happens. 1901. The Wellsworth and Sudbury line gets extended to Brendam. 1904. On the Mid-Sodor Railway, there is 3 new engines: Stanley, Smudger, and Falcon. And the story Bulldog happens. Okay, so in the TV series, there's Smudger. In the railway series, there's Stanley. This is my interpretation. You choose who you want to be on the Mid-Sodor Railway, Stanley or Smudger. Write it down in the comments. I would like to know. But for my show, I am going to use Stanley, not Smudger, because Stanley is the original. 1905. The Ellsbridge light... Sorry, there's a plane outside. The Ellsbridge-Knapford line gets extended to Tidmouth, and Great Waterton builds a tramway from Great Waterton to the wharf, so to Wortfell, and it is run by a fleet of 060 trams like Toby. We will get to Toby later. 3 years later, the extension to Tidmouth gets wrecked by a storm. We're now in the 1910s. A new extension is built through a tunnel, Tidmouth Tunnel, and the railway gets renamed to the Tidmouth-Ellsbridge-Knapford Light Railway. God, that's a mouthful. 1911. The Reverend W. Audrey's born. He's going to be very important for later on. 1912. 1912. The Wellsworth, Sudbury, and Brendam Railway and the Tidmouth-Knapford-Aylesbury Light Railway converge. Oh my god, that's such a long sentence. Hard times come for the Sodor and mainland. Hiro is hidden on a siding because the railway has no Japanese parts for him. Neil gets sold off to the Crovan's Gate Mining Company and would transport slate that Skarloey brought him to Kirk Ronan Harbor, and when he was being repaired, Skarloey would go onto a gauge converter truck to work on this standard gauge line. This frequent overuse wore Skarloey out, and he was put in the sheds. This was just revealed to us this Friday, just yesterday. This was just revealed to us yesterday from the time that I'm recording this. Yesterday. Good thing I had to do 4 takes, otherwise I would not have this information. Otherwise this video would have been completely redundant. 1914. All standard gauge railways on Sodor converge. The 060 saddle tank locomotives are sold, and the railway is renamed to the North Western Railway. And Sir Topham Hatt I, aka the Fat Director, is the controller. World War I starts, and Sir Charles Topham Hatt II, aka the Fat Controller, is born. 1915. Edward arrives on Sodor. Thomas runs onto the railway, trying to run away from World War I, and the two build the railway. Peter Sam is born. Okay, so I put a red image of Edward here because Edward comes from the Furnace Railway and all their engines are red, so when he would come, he would still be in red. And I put the J50 type of Thomas on here because I think, so what my headcanon is that he comes to Sodor as a J50, but then gets rebuilt to an E2. That's my headcanon. And think of it as like how Henry was like supposed to be an Atlantic, but then went to Crew, and then like got reshaped into an LMS, a Black 5. It's kind of like that. But basically, they are not bought yet by the Fire Control. They're just borrowed until to build the line. 1916. When the railway is complete, Thomas becomes the Tidmouth station pilot. 1920s. Thomas is bought and gets rebuilt and repainted, and Edward gets repainted. On the Mid-Sodor Railway, there's a humongous order of new engines put in, and there are Stuart, Albert, Jim, Tim, Fearless Freddy, Jerry, Jennings, John, Proteus, and the mine engine. Okay, so Stuart is going to be Peter Sam later on. Albert is someone that we never saw in the books, but he's there. Jim and Tim too. Fearless Freddy. It's very basically accepted that he was a Mid-Sodor engine. And Jerry was another Mid-Sodor that we never saw, same as Jennings. John too, and Proteus. I think he was a Mid-Sodor Railway if he was real. It's my headcanon, and I'll talk more about Proteus later. And the mine engine was also another one that we never got to see. The stories in the Railway Series book number 25. You Can't Win happens. Great Waterton is abandoned, and as well as a tram engine. And Tugs, season 1 happens. I've seen Tugs. I love Tugs, and I really do. And it is in the 1920s, so I put it in 1920. I think it's really cool, like if like Thomas Tugs, Shining Time Station, and all that stuff was like in the same universe. Like we had kind of like a Thomas the Tank Engine cinematic universe, kind of like that. Kind of like what Marvel's going for, but on a much smaller scale and started way earlier. Like, I really think that'd be cool. And in Tatmar, there was a script for a Tugs character to appear in Thomas. I think they scratched that because they noticed that Tugs plays in the 1920s and Thomas plays like in the 50s. It would just never work. So, yeah. 1921. Every year on the son of the current controller's birthday, Edward takes him on a ride in a special coach. 1922. The UK was founded and Sodor becomes a part of it. 87546 98462, the blue tank engine and the red engine, and the two red engines, there's actually two red engines, are borrowed by the Northwestern. So if you look at the pictures, this first engine, that one is I think 87546, and the other one is 98462. Then on the right we got the blue tank engine, and if you look in the middle between the numbered engines. That's one of the red engines. The other red engine is the one that pushes Henry out of the tunnel. If you look in a Three Railway Engines book. Okay, so let's continue. Henry's bought, not at all what the Fat Controller expects. The sad story of Henry's happens, and the most famous statue on Soda, the line of Soda, breaks. 1923, Gordon is brought, repaired, and gets repainted and gets a new tender. Edward's day out, Edward, Gordon, and Henry happens. The Peel Godred Electric Company makes a power plant in Peel Godred, and they need 4 electric engines to run on the Peel Godred branch line. These are the Electrical Multiple Unit, Class 86, 87, and 90. 1925. Thomas and Gordon, Thomas's trains, and Thomas and the trucks happens. James comes to Sodor. Thomas and the breakdown train happens. The Farquhar branch line gets extended to the quarry. And Glynn gets put on a siding next to Farquhar. The main line was extended to Barrow in Furness. And the Normanby branch line was built. James' red engine happens. 1926. Glynn is moved out of view. The first and second red engine, 87546, 98462, the little blue engine, gets returned. The cement works is built. Fergus comes to Sodor. I put the cement works here because in the Unlucky Tugs model series as video, he says that they've been around for a long time, and he puts it around this time, so I just put it in this year. In the stories, Thomas and the guard, Thomas goes fishing and happens, and troublesome engine happens. The fact director buys Elizabeth. 1928. Stanley, or Smudger, gets converted to a pumping engine / generator because they cause too many accidents. 1929. Montague, aka Duck, is built and works on the Sunshine Line on the Great Western Railway with 3 slip coaches. The 1930s. 1934. Coal happens. 1935. The Flying Kipper and Gordon's Whistle happens. And Toby's Seaside Holiday happens. 1936 is Percy's Pants and Henry Sneezes happens. Mr. Mac retires, and Robert Sam takes over as controller of the narrow gauge railway. So, Henry the Green Engine is weirdly the only book in the series that has 5 stories in it instead of the normal 4. I have no idea why it was done, but it's true. 1939, World War II starts, and Gordon goes to crew. I don't know why you would take your engine to works during a world war. It's weird, but it happens. We're in the 1940s now. Nothing much happens. Christopher Audrey gets born. Barrow in Furness is bombed by Germany, and Sir Topham Hatt III is born. 1943, Skarloey breaks down, and because of the war, the Thing Controller can't repair him, so he gets put into a shed, and Rheneas has to do everything now. This comes from the overuse of him on the gauge converter, because pulling standard gauge trucks is hard for a narrow gauge engine. 1945, the 3 Railway engine is published by Wilbur, and the Mid-Soda Railway has trouble because of the Peel Godred branch line taking all the work. The gold mine is shut down, and the gold mine runs dry, and Bertram is left there. 1936, Proteus fell down the old iron bridge. Okay, so as Unlucky Tugs thinks this too, that Proteus is the one that falls down the old iron bridge. In the scene we see it's Skarloey's prop, but it could be any engine, and I think it is Proteus. Fearless Freddy crashes horrifically and needs to get repaired. So, in the episode where Fearless Freddy gets introduced, Sir Handel knows him, but not Skarloey and Rheneas, meaning that Fearless Freddy is from the Mid-Sodor. And I think he crafted really bad, and he was needed to be repaired, but because he was a narrow gauge engine, getting the parts took years and years and years, and by the time he was repaired, the Mid-Sodor Railway was gone, and the Skarloey Railway bought him. The Merklin engine leaves Sodor, and Stanley and Smudger are sold to a mine where they break down and everything gets flooded. Audrey revealed this somewhere in his notes, I think. 1946, Birdie and the Red Bus comes to Sodor, and Grandpuff happens. Thomas Terrence and the Snow happens, too. And the remaining Mid-Sodor engines are bought aluminum works. 1948. The LNER, the GWR, the LMS, the SR, and the Northwestern Railway and others create British railways. And Sir Topham Hatt I gets knighted by the king in London. Thomas and Birdie happens. The Sodor China clay pits are born. Bill and Ben come to Sodor. Edward gets the Brendan branch, and Roger Sam's born. Okay, so about this being knighted. So in the story, in the railway series, he doesn't get knighted. He gets to be a baron, and he gets a baronetcy, and he gets Sir Topham Hatt. So, but if you can also get a Sir if you're knighted, and I really think it'd be super cool if he would be knighted instead of having a baronetcy. So I changed that just because I like it. So that's my headcanon. Okay, we're in the 1950s. Gallon Old Engine happens in 1950, and Sir Handel Brown the first dies. Sir Handel Lord Brown the second becomes the new owner of the Skarloey Railway. 1951, Robert Sam retires and Peter Sam takes over as controller. Toby and the Stout Gentleman, Thomas in Trouble, and Dirty Objects happen. Sir Handel happens, and Mrs. Kindly's Christmas happens. All the coffee pot engines are scrapped except Glynn. Okay, 1952. Old Iron, Skarloey remembers. Peter Sam and the Refreshment Lady off the rails leaves. Down the mine, Old Faithful happens. And Thomas's Christmas Party from Season 1, Episode 26 also happens. The sheds gets rebuilt during the winter as well. 1953, King George IV dies. Paint Pots and Queens, Cows, Birdie's Chase, and Save from Scrap happens. Mark V is built. If you don't know who Mark V is like basically the Winston, but for the narrow gauge railway. Like he brings the thing controller everywhere he wants to go. And he kind of looks like Toby. 1934. Sir Topham Hatt I retires, and Sir Charles Topham Hatt II is the new controller. Percy and the Signal and Doug takes charge happens. 1955. Harold comes to Sodor. Percy and Harold and Percy's Promise happens. 1956. the 8th famous engine happens, and Topham Hatt the first dies. 1957, Duck and the Diesel engine happens, and Rusty comes to Sodor. 1958, Little Old Engines happens. On the mainland and everywhere else except Sodor, they're slowly cleansing the world of steam, and the twin engines happens. And a young Sir Stephen Topham Hatt III learns how to drive Elizabeth. 1960. Branchline engines happens. Donald and Douglas get a new coat of paint. Rusty to the rescue happens. And Scarlos Lake Quarry gets closed by the Ministry of the Defense because of working conditions. Reverend W. Audrey doesn't state why it was closed, but I'm saying it's because of working conditions, because that leads into what I changed. I've tweaked something later on, and this is kind of like the build-up. 1961, Special Funnel, Steamroller, and Passengers and Polish happens, and Rheneas comes home from the works. Elizabeth is abandoned, and Sir Richard Topham Hatt IV is born. 1962, Patrick, Alaric, and Eric come to Sodor, and Stepney the Bluebell engine happens. 1963, Danger Points and Devil's Back happens. 1964, Tramway engines happens. 1965, Duck and Dukes happens, and Mainline engines happens. And the Little Western is reopened after it was closed after World War I. So during World War I, this line was created because it was a good stationary defense against the seas. It was closed down after World War I because they didn't need to, but they reopened it now for regular use. 1966. A first miniature gauge railway is built in Arles, called the Arlesdale Railway. 1967, Sodor Railway Repair, or the Ballast Cleaner, comes to Sodor. The Arlesdale Railway is opened. Mike, Bert, Rex, Frank, Blister 1, Blister 2 are bought, and small railway engines happens. And Jock, in the story from Jock the New Engine, We Need Another Engine happens too. Enterprising Engines happens, and Oliver the Western Engine happens. Season 2, Episode 26, Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree, happens here too. 1969. Sleeping Beauty happens, and Sigrid of Arsdale comes to Sodor. 1970s. 1976. Jock the New Engine, Sticking Power, Jock, and Teamwork happens. 1969. Really Useful Engines happens. We're already in the 80s. 70s was not much. Roger Sam takes over as controller of the Scarlet Railway in 1980. 1983, Really Useful Engines is published by Christopher Audrey. 1984, Patience is a Virtue, Peter Sam and the Prickly Problem, Pop Special happens. Sir Charles Topham Hatt II retires, and Sir Stephen Topham Hatt III is the new controller. The Works Diesel comes to Sodor, and the Railway Series book James and the Diesel Engine happens. 1968. Sir Handel Comes Home happens, and more about Thomas the Tank Engine happens. Gordon the High Speed Engine happens too. Season 2, Episode 6, Thomas and Trevor happens, and 1987 is where Mavis and the Laurie, Bulstrode, and Toby Takes the Road happens. Thomas and the Evil Diesel happens too. Okay, so Christopher Audrey also wrote some accompanying volumes to the Railway series. It's debatable if they're canon, but I think they are, so I put them in. 1988, Thomas and the Twins happens. 1989, Fred comes to Sodor. Fred is in the ninth engine of the Scarlet Railway. It never gets shown, but he is named and he's important. 1990s. Thomas and the Great Railway Show happens. 1991, Thomas Comes Home happens. 1992, Big Mickey arrives on Sodor. Thomas and the Hurricane happens, which is an accompanying volume. Henry and the Express happens. And Season 3, Episode 1 to 6, 11 to 13, 16, 18 to 19, and 25 to 26 happens. Okay, so I took the episodes out, are based off of Railway series books and stories, because I got those books already in here. So I just put the original ones in here. Wilbert the Forest Engine happens, and the Austerity Engine comes to Sodor. Sir Topham Hatt says that he was going to buy an engine just like Wilbert. We never get to see him, but he is in Austerity, and it happens. 1993. 1995 is when Thomas and the Fat Controller's engines happens. Okay, 1996, Peter Sam is on the Tally Lynn Railway, and the story and dirty water happens. But there's an engine shortage at home, so he comes home earlier. Speed Killer, Sir Handel's Plan, and I Name This Engine happens. And the Scarlet Slate mine is reopened, but working conditions have not changed, and is under the control of the Ministry of Defense and its engine. Sir Handel did something so bad because he was put there for 10 years. Okay, so in the show, Sir Handel is absent until season 10 or 11, something like that. 10 or 11, I forgot. And it's stated that he was in the quarry for the summer. But that doesn't say why he was gone for the years beforehand. So I'm saying, because this is the last time we see Sir Handel, is that after this book, he did something, and he got sent away, and he came back a much changed engine, and that's why he has such a different personality when he comes back. I still made it that the Ministry of Defense still has control over it. It's just that now engines can work there. 1997, Sir Topham Hatt II dies, same as Wilbert Audrey. This year, at the latest is when the story that Rusty told Thomas in Season 5, Episode 26, Snow, happens. 1998. The Peel Goddard line now allows not just electric engines. The Northwestern Railway buys Stepney's branch line, and Roger Sam retires, but the new controller is very late. So the Fat Controller takes over the Scarlet Railway. Okay, so we see that in season 5, that in the seasons that Sir Topham Hatt is the one who is the controller of the line. And I'm saying that because Mr. Percival was supposed to be the one, but for some reason he couldn't get a green card, so he couldn't leave his country, and that's why Sir Topham Hatt is there until he comes back. That's what I'm saying, why that is my headcanon. Okay, so the episode order is a bit out of order for this season because we see that. Because first of all, in season 3, as the Unlucky Tugs stated, that he thinks that season 3's Heroes happens in season 5. I think that too. So the episode order to watch this is different because we see multiple times that engines are running on Toby's branch line in season 5, and Oliver and Toby discovers it in episode 18 and 14. So the episode order to watch this season is I'm going to put this whole sequence down in the comments. We're in the 2000s. Oh no, Koopy. Sorry, my dog just came in just to me and is now sitting down right in front of me. Koopy, why do you always gotta be like this? Okay, let's continue now. My dog is sitting right on my lap right now. Okay. And now the ambulance is coming. Right? This is what happens if you live right in the city. 2000. Serious. Okay. We're in the 2000s. 2002. Season 6. Okay, so there's a episode sequence that you have to watch these episodes because I notice if we now say that every season takes part in 1 year, then all the spring episodes have to be at the front, the summer episodes have to be in the middle, and the autumn episodes have to be in the middle, and then the winter episodes have to be at the end. And that's not from season 6 onwards. They just don't pay attention to that anymore. So this is the sequence that I found that you need to watch. This sequence is again, this is the sequence, and down below is you can look at the sequence again. 2003. We have to do first, we gotta start with Thomas's Trusty Friends. The Thomas's Trusty Friends sequence is the sequence for season 7 is okay. The sequence for season 8 is and Peregrine First will finally arrive at the new narrow gauge controller. For 2005, the sequence for season 9 is then Calling All Engines, because Calling All Engines is summer, and those were the spring episodes that I just told you. Then we continue with season 9 on and Buster, Monty, Patrick, and Nelson come to Sodor. 2006, Jeremy and Rosie come to Sodor. And now we have season 10, which is and Madge comes to Sodor. Thomas and Victoria, the Railway Series book, happens in 2007. And then we continue on with season 11 with the sequence of Okay. In 2008, the Great Discovery happens. Colin comes to Sodor. Season 12, episode. The works is rebuilt to the Steamworks. Kevin comes to Sodor, and 2 narrow gauge engines come too, Victor and Luke. But Victor gets knocked off the ship accidentally by Luke, and he feels guilty. Victor's later recovered, repainted, and works at the new Steamworks. Hero of the Rails happens. The first dockyard manager retires, and the second takes over. Okay, you might be wondering, why is Hero of the Rails in 2008? Well, because in Hero of the Rails, Spencer says, I'm here for the summer. The thing is, he is there for season 13, which takes place where the first episode specifically says it was springtime. But that can't be if season 13 takes place after Hero of the Rails, then it must be the new year. So, I just put Hero of the Rails a year before. 2009, season 13 sequence. Basically in order, just that one episode, that one snow episode. Then we got 2010s. 2010, Misty Island Rescue happens. Season 14 sequence is and Sir Stephen Topham Hatt III dies. 2011, Thomas and His Friends happens. Sir Charles Topham Hatt IV dies. Okay, so it never is stated when Sir Richard Topham Hatt IV dies, but Sir Bertram Topham Hatt IV, so the TV series controller, is now controller. And the reason why he dies, and the fourth dies, is in my canon that he got depressed because his father died and then he died. This is pretty morbid. It's my universe, but it's the only way how this works to get a fourth controller in. Sir Topham Hatt the Sixth goes on a world tour. And you might be wondering, the sixth? So the son of the TV series controller, which we never see. Well, if we're going by the logic that this kid next here is always the grandson of the current controller, that would mean he's the son of the new current controller. And the reason why you never see him in the TV series is because he's on this world tour. This is my canon. This is that he's on a world tour. Yeah. Paxton, Norman, Sydney, Den, and Dart come to Sodor. Day of the Diesels happens, and the sequence for season 15 is and the Blue Mountain Quarry is built. 2012, Blue Mountain Mystery happens, and season 6 sequence is the birthday coach gets restored and is used for Ulster Castle. King of the Railway happens, and season 17 episode. You might be wondering, where's 21 to 26? That is coming up next. Okay, so season 18. Spencer goes back to the mainland. The clay pits is reopened because it was closed years ago. And Marion and Timothy and Reg comes to Sodor. This whole sequence, if this is too confusing for you, it's down in the comments again. You don't need to be confused. 2015, Soldier's Legends of the Lost Treasure happens, which is based off of 2 sentences from the iOS book. One is the Standing Stones, and also one proposed railway to Harwick. Okay, so we got season 19. Sequence is Emily crashes and needs to go to the steamworks. Salty is back from the mainland because in one of the episodes he gets sent to the mainland. And then we pick up with season 19 sequence again with and Vickerstown station gets rebuilt. 2016. Great Race happens, and the sequence for season 20 is okay. 2017. Journey Beyond Sodor happens. Season 21 sequence is that was really confusing. Comments always has sequence there too. Spencer goes back to the mainland again. Oh, Big World, Big Adventures happens. And season 22 happens. Okay, so the sequence is so out of whack here. Because I made it so that if Thomas is in one country, then all of those episodes from that one country comes in one lineup. And because Thomas is on Sodor, in the Sodor episode, which is super weird, the Sodor episodes happen also at the same time, so it's really weird. The episode sequence is now then 2019 we got season 22 episodes again, the China episodes, because there's also China episodes in the next season. I just put them together because it wouldn't make no sense. Thomas goes to China, then goes to other countries, goes home. No, so he's home, then he goes to China, goes to other countries, and then goes to China again. That makes no sense. So I put him in the next season. So it's season 22 again. This is a really messed up year. Now we're in the 2020s. Thomas and the Whirl Engine and Marvel's Machinery happens. Season 24. And that was it. I'm done. That was the big thing. That was a big video, and I hope you're still here because this is going to be a super long video. And I'm now going to talk about what the future of my channel holds. If there's even a future, because right now I have 2 subscribers, and one of that is my old channel. So if you're that one guy that watches me, I hope you like this video. So, the future of my channel. I am going to start a podcast where I'm going to talk about this kind of stuff, like Thomas stuff, and I love it. Just talking. Just about random Thomas stuff. And, I think this is a great way to expand, because then if people know me on podcasts and on YouTube, then they can come together, and then I have a bigger audience. So whenever that podcast is ready, I gotta figure out how to do a podcast and stuff like that. Whenever that podcast is ready, my episodes will start coming out, my videos will start coming out bi-weekly. So 1 week I have a YouTube video, and then 1 week I got a podcast, and then it goes on and on. And then next week's video is gonna be a really cool video. So the Unlucky Tugs made a map video of seasons 1 to 12. I don't really agree with that map. Well, I agree a lot with that map, but not all of it. So I made my own map. And whenever that's ready, I am going to make a video about that. It's probably going to be next week's video. So, yeah. I hope you're still sitting here, and goodbye.